All right, the boss, Matt Souza, back in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Missed you, bro.
Yeah, hi. How you guys doing?
Oh,
Good.
chilling. How was Valentine's Day? You didn't fuck up, did you?
No,
What?
uneventful. Yeah. No. It was good. It was good. It's low key. Like Grace's birthday is 2 days afterwards on the 16th.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of do like sometimes we could just kind of smush them together. And right now she's halfway through her 8-week nutrition challenge that she runs at the gym. So it's
Mm.
like full scramble mode for her as it's like halfway through and she's doing other scans and all this other stuff. So we're gonna celebrate the collection of the both on Friday.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And she has a degree in nutrition, right? I think I heard you say on another show she have like a PhD or something like that, like doctorate with nutrition, or
She has her master's in nutritional science and she's a registered dietitian.
oh shit,
Yeah.
she knows all the shit. That's
Well,
awesome.
yeah, which was funny with her going through school with that. Just with like how they teach stuff sometimes and like her, knowledge of stuff because of CrossFit. It was a interesting thing for her to navigate at times.
Oh, as in like the comparison is big. Like it's
Yeah, I
not a lot
mean,
of the same stuff.
it's a lot of the registered dietitians are still really in like calories in, calories out and aren't focused on the quality of the calories so much as just the math behind the in and the out.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course, if there's a calorie deficit, like you're gonna lose weight, right? But that doesn't mean that you could fit your macros, which is a bunch of shit food, and still get a positive result internally with like the chemistry that's happening inside your body, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it differs from time to time. And that's kind of why you saw, like, I don't know if you guys saw Hiller's whole deal when he had that one guy on from like CBG Nutrition or whatever
I
the
haven't
heck.
seen it,
I
but that
saw
is
it.
something that I do want to go watch. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, generally that's what that discussion was about, right? Because the whole deal is like a lot of the athletes start to use their carbohydrate as like sugar. So they'll be like, oh, in between events, I'm like slamming gummy bears. And I mean, Matt's whole thing on Rogan was like the Snickers and the Coca-Cola, right? And then
Yeah.
that kind of rubbed the whole community the wrong way because we're like, oh, here we are, our idols, the tip of the spear, and they're not even like preaching at all at the bottom of the pyramid, which is the nutrition. So whatever. That's kind of how that lays out.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I've been talking to a lot of women. A friend of mine is a nutritionist, and she went through a lot with miscarriages and stuff like that, and the conventional medicine and conventional doctors. And you go in there, and I've asked for a gut test, and I've asked for allergy tests, and I've asked for so many different things, and talking about nutrition and stuff like that, and they just hand you paperwork, or you're fine, like don't
Right.
worry about it. Your blood test comes back, and you're fine. But what I'm learning by listening to, and I'm not saying like full blown holistic, all this type of stuff, but the more you talk to them, the more they actually point out that, okay, fine, you can go get a blood test, but they're not actually taking samples and testing specific things. So for instance, I have thyroid issues in my family. My mother has her thyroid out. My cousin's a year older than me. She just got her thyroid taken out. So when I was like, should I be worried about my thyroid? She's like, no, you're fine. And then talking to my friend, she's like, you actually, when you next time you go get a blood test, you have to ask for these specific markers for the thyroid. And it's always interesting to me because you would think that they would want to look at all of the details. But what we're learning is that and that's why when you said that to me, I was like, oh shit, like it actually is really true that in school, they really don't teach you.
No.
They don't teach you that kind of stuff.
No, yeah, nutrition's, I think there's like a whole like hour or something required.
Slater,
Yeah.
I got a degree in nutrition, and what they taught me was dumb as fuck.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
And the thing is too, is like Grace's dad was like a chemistry whiz. And so most doctors like end up failing organic chemistry. Like that ends up being like one of their harder like courses on their path, right? And it's nuts because her dad was the type of guy that would sit there and like you could say something on the periodic table of elements and he would tell you what the acronym was for what the abbreviation was, and like that's the type of what. So it was nuts. So she understands it on a whole different level. She ended up with like the only person I know that got an A in organic chemistry 1 and 2. And so if anybody's ever dabbled in that, to know how to achieve that is very difficult. And so when you understand it on that level, you understand how the insulin's responding to the sugar and how different things are affecting your body like differently. And there's no two ways around that.
So with the challenge, does she do macros? Does she do like how does she break down her nutrition program that she does for the gym?
Yeah, so it's not a program at all. It's basically just clean eating. And our whole entire
Oh,
thing
okay.
is focused around really two things. It's cutting out the alcohol, which is like the number one. Get the alcohol out, Reddit. So
Mhm.
it's 0 alcohol for the 8 weeks. And then it's zero, basically like 0 added sugar and 0 kind of packaged foods is the idea.
Okay.
So, we all know that all diets like differ to some degree of it. So she doesn't really go down the rabbit hole there. We just really put an emphasis, and this is for the gym in total. It's like 0 alcohol, 0 things that come in a package. Like try to keep those processed foods limited down, the junk foods, and then
Mhm.
try to eat as high in protein as you can with as much quality proteins as you can.
Cool.
That's
Love
it.
that. I
Simple.
love that. Yeah. Simple. We all need to simplify nutrition.
Yeah,
I think
simple.
we've complicated it for so long. And I think people don't know that it's as simple as that. Do your best, because obviously the quality of our food isn't being questioned now too. We do the best that we can.
Right.
Out here, we buy meat, we buy fruit, we buy vegetables, and we like to believe that it's the best quality that we can get out here. So, but everything is sprayed, everything is this, and we do the best that we can. So, I love that whole idea of keeping it super simple.
Yeah, that's it. So there's no prescription diet. And if you
Yeah.
have specificity to it, like she'll work with you on it, of course.
Mhm.
But yeah, and we have the InBody scanner. So the whole deal too is like you build skeletal muscle mass. Like that's like a big goal of it as well.
Very cool. Okay, babe, I'll
Yeah.
stop talking about nutrition. Go ahead.
No,
I know
no,
you
go
want to
for it.
ask him a ton
Because
of
no, it's fine. Because I was about to say there's nothing
I nerd out
sexier.
on the CrossFit and the nutrition side. That's what part of me talking to you guys. I
No,
love it.
it's fine. I was about to say, like, I remember when she wanted to get her gut tested, and there's nothing sexier than when your wife gets that like poop test in the mail.
It
and
humbles you, man.
Oh
it's like,
man.
the sexy is real when that
Yeah.
happens.
I cannot wait for the day.
Oh,
Sounds exciting.
It humbles the fuck out of you as a person, and it completely humbles the relationship.
I bet. I
I had one the other day, and I was like, she's like, "Ooh, what is that?" I was like, "Not anything good." She's like, "Okay, cool."
I thought it was something for me. I was like, oh, hey, that's a package from anybody, from Wild Zombie, from,
Yeah.
Travis at Vindicate.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, yay. And then she was like, nope.
Nope.
And then showed me, okay,
Yeah.
we're good today. We're
Yeah.
good. It's cool.
Not open that package.
No, definitely not.
We were joking a ton before we got on with you. We watched a Piers Morgan. Do you watch Piers at all?
Yeah, sometimes.
He just had one
My
on,
head hurts.
and it was a transgender woman, and then Riley Gaines, and the whole premise was to talk about men or transgender women in women's sports or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm watching it, I'm realizing Piers Morgan is what's his name?
Jerry Springer.
The Jerry Springer of the political world. It was probably the most entertaining podcast I've watched. Like it was so funny, but so funny because it was so ridiculous. Like the transgender woman's name is Blossom. She's a Black trans woman activist, whatever. And it just, she was like, hey, we can have the Paralympics and the regular Olympics, and it can all just be the Olympics. We don't have to separate the two.
Or gender
neutral Olympics. Yeah. And it was just like, that's fine. Like, I don't see why we have to. There are women that are born with more testosterone. And I would venture to say I am probably a woman that is born with more testosterone than most other women.
Mm-hmm.
Not beating a dude in sport-specific shit. Like, it was an amazing podcast. Like, if you get a chance to go, I couldn't.
No, tell the truth. Brace yourself. You're just listening to someone scream for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, he had to mute her 3 times because she wouldn't shut up and just like listen to anybody else's point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of crazy, right? When like somebody is I guess that's the last line of defense though. You have to do that because the only other option that individual would have is like to concede and be like, yeah, okay, you're right. This whole thing is actual kind of a little out there. And like the one thing too that's always interesting about those arguments as like they're going back and forth, it's what's the long-term outcome from that? because it seems like everybody's focused on just solving like maybe the problem that's right in front of us with the two characters that we see, the talking heads on TV, but like push that forward another 20 years. Like all you've done is just blur the line so much that then you've just essentially moved females out of sports. Like I don't see, and if you were to look at like the fruit of the labor, the long-term fruit of the labor, like I don't see how that road leads to anything other than women no longer in sports.
That's exactly.
I don't know if there's another opinion on that, but like that, I just don't see it leading anything else but that.
The immediate talking point, and no, Corey, what's up, dude? Not Blossom, not Mayim Bialik, not like the Blossom that we all know and love from the like early 90s or whatever. She's a black trans woman activist. And it just the immediate thing that she goes to anytime Riley Time tries to talk is just, hey, a black trans woman is talking, you can't talk.
Yeah.
And then the other great one was black women can't be racist. Like we just can't be racist. And that was just the talking points the entire time. That was it. It was, and Riley's like, hey, you're making trans women look bad. Like you're making trans people look bad. The ones that like actually, they're just trying to live a life. And she was like, well, that's not me. And they were like, well, that's why Trump won.
Because of you, Blossom. No, I mean, it's an interesting situation because how often do you hear when we hear these arguments? It's like nobody's like, hey, I'm a trans woman and they won't let me clean out the sewer. They blocked me from that job because it says that I have to be able to lift 70 pounds above my head to get out of the sewage, and I can't do it, and that's unfair. And I'm a trans man.
Yeah, right.
There's zero argument on the other side of it. It always has to be some sort of like achievement or like power position, right? Like even kind of like the women's equality stuff too. Like, hey, we need equal pay. Like women executives are making whatever the recent data is, 12% less than their male counterparts. It's like, why is it always the executive positions? Why? Like,
yeah, right.
Nobody's being like, hey, we need more women bricklayers. Like we need to, like, let's make sure we have a certain amount on every job site. Like nobody's really pushing it that way. It's always like this, like more like high profile kind of achievement style position. I don't know. It just therefore it's already brings up kind of like, is this really about somebody who's being picked on or being victimized here, or is there something else underneath this?
It was just crazy. We and Colleen, you said something. You were like, hey, this just reminded me that this is something that I never want to be. Like I never want to argue like this. I never want to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're doing it in a much more public place, and that's fine. If we all have a platform. Obviously, we're on a podcast right now. We all decided one day we're going to put some mics and wear some headphones and click live on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like everybody has a platform, and I always say that I think social media is good and bad in that aspect. Everybody has an opinion, good or bad. You take that. But I remember being triggered all the time, and I remember being angry all the time, and hearing it and seeing it again, it's just a constant reminder for me of like, I don't want to be that angry all the time. I don't want to be at such a triggered level that I can't just sit and have a conversation with you, even if we don't agree, even if her delivery wasn't so like angry and over you and I'm going to be better than you. And I think that there could have still been a conversation there.
They muted her.
Even if nobody agreed.
On Piers Morgan,
3 times.
Jerry Springer of political podcasting, they muted her 3 times.
Probably more
for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Each time.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I just think I'm in a different. If you actually really want to try to understand each other, you can't scream at each other. And I think that is where they're losing credibility. They're just losing credibility because if you're screaming at somebody, are completely disinterested. You know what I mean? I always look at couples like that was something that Garrett said to me when we first got together. She's like, if you want to, you can be angry, but you can't yell. Because the minute that you yell, I'm out of the conversation. There's nothing is going to be solved. And so I'm seeing it so much more now. And I'm like, oh, they just yell all the time. And it was another reminder of, thank God I am not angry all the time.
Bernie Gannon, what's up, bro? Did you ever see the transgender lady who grabbed and threatened to beat up Ben Shapiro? Yeah, I actually saw the clip and I saw that episode with Ben Shapiro in the episode, but I didn't see her on Dr. Drew. I'm sure she probably was still the same shit. But like, yeah, I was like, that's great. So you're a lady, but you're going to take Ben Shapiro outside and throw his 130-pound ass around and like with your 200-pound self. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Jake, more like Montel. No, I'm telling you, man, I'm waiting for one day, but it's just because he doesn't have them in-house. If he had all the people in-house, there'd be chairs thrown.
Yeah,
that's like
no, I agree with you because he does the whole setup thing, right? Where he's like, well, so and so thinks like this, and how would you respond to that? And he just like tease it up. But Colleen, I got a question though. So you were like, oh, I'm glad I'm not angry anymore when I see things like that. Like, why aren't you angry anymore when you see things like that?
I did a lot of work. I worked with she wasn't a therapist. She calls herself a life coach. But so it's funny. I started an online personal training business. And within doing that, I got into a lot of communities, online communities, like for business. And it appeared to me very early on that I wasn't getting in for business. It really was like a testament to myself and a challenge for myself to really get through the layers of the type of person that I am. And so I went from one, and then I went to another, which was just like a mental health like group that I was in. And then about 6 months later, I met back up with one of my coaches that was in the groups that I was with, and I worked with her one-on-one. And a lot of it was looking in the mirror, and a lot of it was diving into my trauma that I experienced as a child, as a teen, as an early adult, and really just facing it and moving through it. And
it was accountability. It was basically your accountability coach.
Yeah. And so, so I really did.
Mine was Sevon. I watched the Sevon.
which is funny though, because we kind of put that in comparison. Like if I'm talking to her, I say, you know, I am like Mary, my coach saved my life. Like she helped me change to be the person that I am today. Sevon did that for Garrett. Like it really is people that challenge you in a way that you've never been challenged before. And I think as partners, I think you try to challenge each other, and we have in so many different ways, but sometimes that outside person just challenges you in a really different way. And she did that with me because I faced my trauma. And I almost think Sevon did that for you, babe, because the first time you guys had like a face-to-face conversation, like he talked about your story, you know what I mean? And so you kind of get yourself super uncomfortable.
You were there, Souza.
And then you realize,
I remember that. And I was like, it was almost like I was telling my own story, but with me being shut off because I didn't want to feel it. Like I didn't want to feel telling the story, but I told the story as if it wasn't me kind of thing. Cause I didn't want to have like emotions on camera.
Yeah.
Now I would say I probably could, like, if I talked about it, I probably could just tell the story and just have the emotions on camera. But yeah, it was crazy time. Like homie's done a lot for us and whatever. So
I also think that you hear this idea of a victim mentality. And I think what her and I have done, and I mean, I'll speak for myself, babe, you can speak for you. I think that I stopped allowing that to be my self-identity. Yes, I'm a victim. Yes, I went through a lot of really shitty shit, but I'm not using that as my identity anymore. I'm not leading with that. And I think the new kind of shift in perspective is that I'm also not leading with my sexuality anymore. I mean, we've met so many amazing people. And one of the things that they remind us of is that, yeah, you two are two women that love each other, but there's so much more to you guys. Right. And so then that. And so I think like not leading with those two titles, I think has been actually very freeing for me. Babe, would you say the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because now you don't have to hide behind those identities. You could just express yourself as you.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to put those forward. And a lot of times I think it's a shield a little bit too.
For sure.
Right? Like even like what you were saying here, like, oh, like the first time I had to have an out of body experience just to walk through it so I couldn't feel the emotions. And it's like, yeah, maybe it takes a little bit of time for you to walk through that and actually like be there with it, right? And like remember the whole entire thing as it is and allow yourself to feel like shit if you have to. And then also pull yourself out of that same situation because it's not going to go anywhere. And you have to fight to hold on to all of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true. And Jethro, yeah, thanks. Yeah, nobody cares you're gay. Next. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
right.
really come to that now. Like, I'm not explaining, like, I'm not. I don't feel like I need to lead with that or explain myself or be like, hey, whatever. Like, it's nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit. It's cool. Hey, does anybody give a shit that Elon had his 13th kid? Does that like keep him from
Doing his job?
yeah, Doge and make it difficult? I didn't give a shit.
No, most people will attack his character, but at the end of the day, if you really think about it, you're like, okay, so he's really smart. We know that. Check, right? So you want more smart people. Okay, have more smart kids. Chances are they're all going to be smart, right? Are those kids in any way going to be a burden on society's resources? Well, no, he's got like $400 billion. So I think we got that covered. Check, right? Like, can you make the claim that that the kid will grow up with Elon not being around as much because of all of his ventures and everything else? And it's like, yeah, him and millions of others.
Yeah.
So let's go after the more low-hanging fruit with all the kids that are growing up in that same circumstance, but with zero resources and in a much worse environment. So, I mean, I don't know. That's where you kind of just follow that line of logic, right? Now you could look at it and be like, oh my gosh, he's slept with all these chicks, and what kind of guy does that? And like, you're not going to defend that. I'm not going to defend that. But like, yeah, you're right. Like, if it were me, I would prefer to have a really good relationship with my kids. Here's the other thing. You have no idea. How do you know? Does he have a relationship with the kids? Did you see him playing with them? Did you not? Do we know? Are they in the office? Does he have caretakers? What are their relationships? What are the relationships with mothers? Like, how's that family life? Like, what does that look like? Like, we don't know. So you have to start with the fact of like, oh, he's never ever there, and then fill in the rest of the gap, right? So
the thing that I thought was super funny is the people that are yelling at him about having 13 kids and however many baby mamas. I'm not even sure how many moms have the 13 kids. Are the people that have baby mamas and probably 6 kids, right? Like
always.
it's not the people that are married and have 5 kids together and they've been married forever or whatever. The people yelling at him and that are pissed at him are the ones that probably do not have 13 kids, but probably like, or maybe Boosie. Boosie's probably yelling at him and he's got 13 kids and like however baby mamas, but like those are the people that are yelling at him.
Right.
Are the ones that are in the same situation that he's in. He's just a billionaire with the 13 kids.
Right. And if they have a similar situation going on in their life, do you think that they're yelling at them because they think it's wrong? Or do you think that they're yelling at him because they actually are deep down are pissed off because he's doing it and has the resources to and they're struggling?
Probably both. Like legit, probably both. I mean, the only one not yelling at him is Nick Cannon because he has the resources. Like,
yeah,
probably it.
and of course, that they're gonna start. I mean, who knows how much have we seen them trying to, and them being like the corporate media and kind of the establishment that's in place, especially the Hollywood types and different things, like how much shots and stuff they're going to continue to take at Elon as they switch it from Trump to Elon, right? So we saw this migration of hate kind of move from Trump more or less to Elon. And if you've kind of noticed the sway there, like now all of a sudden there's all these stories that are kind of unearthing and coming out. And it's like, that's no coincidence, right? But the one thing that is just interesting to me is like, if he's going in there and truly saying, hey, look, we're going to start tracing where every dollar goes and understand exactly where these tax dollars are going and where we could save some and where we could reallocate them back into our own, citizens here. Like, weirdly enough, who would be against that?
Yeah, that's what did he just say? He was thinking about putting like 10% or 20% back to the taxpayers.
Makes it out to be what, $5,000 or something like that?
I don't know,
per
but
person or per
I
household,
saw that shit and I'm like, I'm good with that. Like if you find $1 billion that doesn't need to be somewhere and you want to give taxpayers back 10%, everybody 10%, like, or use 10% to give everybody back $5,000. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. The interesting thing with that though, too, is like, when that happens, that money just goes right back to where it was before. Meaning
Oh,
you would be better off, like I would be better off reinvesting that money back into the United States with some sort of transparency as to like how those dollars and future dollars are going to be allocated rather than have money back in my pocket. Because all that money that comes back out is going to have some sort of unintended consequence. And majority of it, as it goes back to a lot of these households that may, not have a lot of cash on hand and different things, it's just going to be immediately spent. So that's just going to go right back to where it was before. And you might not see any tangible like change to anybody, as opposed to if you reinvested that overall into something that might help some people more, into local governments or into different things with schools. Or here's a no-brainer: if you're a cop, if you're a firefighter, if you're a nurse, if you're a teacher, why not have a massive tax break on owning a home inside the community you work at?
See, you're smart, and that's why we have you on the podcast. That's like a long-term kind of goal that people with your kind of knowledge base understand. But for like regular people, and maybe even not even Trump's base, right? He might be like trying to, hey, let's make them feel good for a second because they're so mad and they're so upset and they have their TDS and they're going nuts. Like if I just tell them I'm going to give them 10% and whatever, and I give them 5K, maybe they'll calm down for a second and then we can do the rest of the stuff that we need to get done. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, you're always looking to pacify.
I'm not saying that's the best way. I'm just saying that it might be like,
I agree. That's probably going to be more of the way that they'll lean towards, right? I mean, like think about how much stuff is gone into subsidizing citizens, like even sports, movies,
right?
Like all of that stuff. Like there's massive incentives for like football franchises for the stadiums and to host a team there and to do all of that. And I mean, that's all kind of for that same reason. And yeah, I think that they would give everybody $5,000 back. You would have way more of a positive outlook on what's going on than if you're like, hey, we're going to reinvest this back into, your local economy. Right. Yeah. Like people would be like, fuck that. I'm not going to see anything change. But for me, it's more or less like it just has to be transparency of like where that money's going. And we need to construct some sort of system for that. And then the second step to that is to start to stop a lot of lobbying that's going on. Like you shouldn't be able to be Gavin Newsom out here with whatever the governor's salary is, like 200 something thousand or whatever. And then he has this $9 million home and you kind of think about it for your minute and you're like, well, what would that look like? Well, we need like, multiple $1 million for a down payment, and shit, that monthly mortgage on that's probably in the tens of the thousands a month, right? Like how the fuck does he afford that? So like, I think that's where you would need to start and really find out like where all that money's going and how those lobbying dollars are influencing these politicians, and figure out a way to stop that.
Well, it's starting to like all of this information that's coming out. And even if you don't know that much about the numbers and money and how all this kind of stuff works or whatever, seeing how big these numbers are that they're finding of misused money, or this money says it's supposed to be going here, but come to find out that this percentage of that money is actually going to what the headline says, but the rest of this money is going to a laundry list of things underneath that nobody ever looks. I mean, what everyday person is going to look into a bill and pick it apart and understand exactly what all of this money? Nobody is. Nobody. We're going to look at the big thing. So when you hear stuff like Social Security or retirement or Medicaid or, services for like my son who's autistic, like all of those headlines, sure, sign me up. Sounds great. But then you find out that that's not actually where it's going towards. There is such an uproar that people are mad about finding out that information. Why do you think that is? Shouldn't that be alarming to all of us that much money is being misplaced and all of the tax dollars that we're paying are literally not being used to what we're told that it's being used for?
I mean, think about it this way. You guys do a household budget?
Yeah.
So imagine before you had done your household budget, right? You probably didn't have a handle on those dollars and everything else. And then you sit down and you're like, we got to get our shit under control. This debt's like getting insane, and like we need to get this under control. The first thing that normally happens is you guys look at all those things and are like, we spent on what? We door dashed how much?
Yeah.
It was that fucking much for that whatever, right? Like you bought that again and we had 5 of them over here. Like, so I think that's what's happening right now is we're just seeing how much waste is actually out there. And we know that, especially this time period, that a lot of Americans are struggling and there's a disappearing middle class. And that wealth gap is getting more and more and more and more and more. And so I think just people are really frustrated because ultimately everything is built off the back of the middle class, because those oftentimes are the workers that produce. Like politicians don't produce. They like try to direct and allocate. And the issue, that's not an issue. You always need somebody to do that. The issue is there's no accountability for those individuals. So if we put you guys in charge of the household budget and you were kind of like angry and were like, we need to get the spending under control. And I was like, yeah, I got it. Don't worry. And you're like, hey, good news. We actually got a slight raise. And I'm like, cool. And then you come back again and you look at the budget and it's worse and you're further in debt.
Okay.
What would you do to me? You fire my ass.
Yeah.
You fucking owe us money. But what happens to the government?
Nothing.
They get more.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
There's just this massive lack of accountability is really what it is. And I think that all this pieces of like people getting frustrated and hanging on in the media trying to stoke that is the last bit of that potentially slipping away.
Hey, and they really are stoking that. Like, I talked to
Bill.
Oh, hey, what's
Yes,
up, Mr. Bill Grundler?
That is you over there.
Souza, you're over there. It's just not in the shot, but you are over there.
Oh, I'll take your word for it. Right next to
right there, right by Garrett's. I'm pointing at the screen like you can see my finger.
Yeah, right. I know.
right
yeah, I see it. I see it.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Awesome.
But I was talking to a friend of mine came in. I talked to him today, and he's somebody that I've known for a long time. He's older than me. He's pretty much known me my entire life since I was a kid. Crazy respect for him. He's Native. He was in the military, and really good dude. And he came in and started talking about to me, and he's really scared. He really thinks that this is going to be a dictatorship. He really thinks that Elon Musk running around unchecked because he has the okay from the president, and like he's scared. I even said, I was like, well, hey dude, like even if you're scared, you know what I mean? Like it's Trump for 4 years. That's it. And then we're going to have another elections. Like you're not going to have to see Trump ever again. He's like, no. They could change it so that he's going to be the president for the next, or it's just going to be a dictator. He's going to be here forever. And I was like, what? He's not. And I even tried to chill him out by being like, yo, he's already been president, and all of the shit that I was scared of that he was going to do the first time, he didn't do. So, but no, the level of fear of whatever the propaganda is that's getting put out about Elon doing whatever Elon's doing, it's crazy real. They're really scared.
Yeah. I mean, I would be too if everything I consumed just pounded that into my brain. Right. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So the individual that you're talking to, I always go back to these kind of discussions with friends and family. And the number one thing I ask myself is if I'm going to engage in this conversation with you, really do it. A lot of times I'm just sarcastic, or I'll make jokes about it or something like that and just piss people off and kind of move on. But if I'm really going to okay, if we're going to engage this conversation, the first thing you have to decide is what is your outcome with this conversation for him? Do you not want him to be afraid? Or do you just want him to see it the way that you see it?
No, I don't ever want to do that.
So what is your optimal outcome?
I mean, in that moment, I was kind of surprised. I wasn't really expecting to be talking about politics in that moment. It was just hey, here's your sandwich kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that always kind of works is rather than asking questions, rather than trying to argue it or defend the position, just lean in more to where they're getting the information from. So just be really, how do you what am I missing? Where are you seeing that at?
Oh,
and then it'll start to boom, 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 and be when did you start seeing that? I've been hearing this too. It's ramping up, right? Boom, 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 and then very quickly you could understand at least sources of information. And then again, going back to what your actual goal is here, that could a conversation just be and be yeah, just talking to you for 2 minutes, I'm terrified. How do you think this will actually affect our everyday life? So like, what does that look like to you?
I did
then,
for
you
a
know,
second. I was like, oh my God, was I wrong? Like, did I not pay attention? Like, what did I miss? Who did I not listen to? And I was like,
right. And if you leave with like general curiosity, they'll start to unwind it and you'll quickly find out it's probably bullshit. And it's just the MSNBC or CNN on repeat. And then now I'm terrified about that. Or, you know, who knows? Maybe you might learn something. I don't know. But,
yeah.
you know, typically it just turns into that. And then they kind of like almost walk themselves off the ledge, so to speak. If that makes sense.
You know, it does. Bill Grundler. It's the emotional play of taking your money, but that's not what Elon is looking at. And it's the people with the effed up plans are the ones yelling the most to their blind Dems. Yeah, fair. Map Lady, I know you've said this before, lady. We just lost funding to mitigate water quality. It's not all puppies and rainbows over here. Good luck. Buy a heavy duty water filter. So they cut funding for, is that what you're saying? Well, I've gotten emotionally involved in Ozark, so now I'm worried about money laundering and drug cartels. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen that?
No. I haven't watched, like, I don't think I've watched anything in the recent, like nothing. Maybe like that stupid ass show, Love is Blind, where they're inside the different pods and they can't see each other unless they get married or whatever. Yeah.
People watch that shit.
That was like the last one that like Grace had on. I hate to admit, it's one of those ones that I'm like doing shit. I'm like, why is this on? And then I'm kind of like stopping what I'm doing and watching, and then like a cut scene, and that's just me leaned in, being like, oh, that chick's the bitch, huh? Yeah. And all of a sudden I'm super into it, and I don't know why. But that was probably one of the last things like I've watched.
Oh no, you got to watch this. I thought of you too, pause, while I was watching Ozark, because I was like, oh, Souza, the money thing, how they write the programming to like launder money and all this shit. And I'm like, oh, Souza could explain this to me. Like, how do you write this program right now? It's amazing. I'm kind of sad there's only 4 seasons, unless like Netflix was cheap.
Probably.
That's
usually how it happens. You fall in love with a show, they give you just enough, and then they take it
away from you.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer anything in there? Is there anything you're looking at? If not, I'm gonna go to.
Not really. I mean, Jake asked me if I watched Jurassic Park. Actually, yeah, I did. I saw that in the theaters, Jake.
He also asked you how much you paid to get calf implants, or how much do you think calf implants are? He asked that shit.
He's clearly never seen my calves. There is no mistaking my calves for calf implants. That's for sure. I don't know, dude.
Okay, so we all saw the barbell spin came out last night. I don't know if you watched it, but you guys are doing Syndicate. JR's programming Syndicate.
Yeah, crazy. That's crazy. I had no idea.
That's
I had
insane.
no idea. Like none of us had any idea. Part of me respects the hell out of that, and then part of me is like the ego part of me is like sad, like, oh man, tell me. But yeah, it's.
I was gonna say, how did John Young know and y'all didn't know?
I don't know. I also like truth be told too, like some of that news takes a little bit to like get to me. I presume like there's so much other stuff going on that like I have to like sit down and kind of like fish through the thread and like put some pieces together, because I'm like 12 hours behind. So I can't like ask any questions at that point. So sometimes it takes a little bit to get to me. So at first I was like, fuck, did I miss it? Was I the only one? And then I was like, no. Okay. None of us knew. But I could not be more excited for JR, and I can't be more excited for the event now too. Like, I mean, I already was pumped. Wilson's already done a hell of a job with Syndicate.
That dude's super cool. That's the first time I ever saw him was on Spin, and he seems amazing.
Wilson's fantastic. Yeah, the guys, especially last year when we were there, and like shit, it was always weird going to some of those events, right? Like you get there and you're like, oh, do we have like passes for everybody that we submitted an email, and then you don't, and then they're kind of like weird about it. Like I've been like that since day one. Like it always never felt like overly like welcome, like, hey, we're glad you're here. Here's your pass. It's always felt a little bit like I'm kind of like not really supposed to be there, but they kind of have to let me in. The games, last year, I'd probably say up until the obvious tragedy and stuff like that, probably felt like the most like, okay, cool, like we could be here and like it's good. But yeah. So, but when we went over to Syndicate, Wilson was the exact opposite of that. He was so cool. He like got us everything we needed, got us that room. Like, yeah, he's dope. He's a good dude.
You said on a call the other day that you were going to, or maybe it was yesterday, that you were going to like a streaming meeting or a strategy meeting, or what does that look like? Like how are you, what, because it's a venue, right? Like now it's a bigger venue than Crash. It's like I remember watching it. Wasn't that the one Hopper won? Didn't he get the sword one year? I feel like I've seen that venue before.
No, that's the one in Tennessee. It was the one. It was they have the semifinal East at it last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically, what that strategy meeting could mean a bunch of different things. It's kind of just like a fucking corporate catchphrase word, right? Like, oh, strategy
Oh, I
meeting.
thought it
We're
was
gonna
like
align through conversations, but basically what it is like all of us just kind of get in the room and we're like, okay, cool. What's the things that are first announcing?
that
What
was
are
Max.
things that are
Thank you.
announcing? Oh yeah.
You're right.
What are things are we announcing? Like, okay. And it was funny because we met with Wilson that day, like that morning, yesterday morning. And obviously he didn't tell us or whatever, but he was like, yeah, there's another big announcement coming to, Syndicate. And it just went right over my head. I was like, cool, dude, fucking whatever. Like announce something awesome. Like I got 30 other things I'm fucking trying to figure out right now. But yeah, so anyways, they announced that, and then that meeting was just basically about like, okay, here's our timeline. What do we need? What type of variables are we looking at? What are camera angles? What does kind of the floor plan look like? What does the vendor village look like? When are we loading in, loading out? What are some expectations with sponsors? What does promotion for the event look like? How do we put together the team? Then there's travel. Like there's just a lot of logistic stuff that goes into it. So that meeting was just the first one just to kind of get the ball rolling. And Tyler's going to be heaven sent for that because he's kind of project managing everything and keeping all the pieces of the puzzle together so we know where we are and where we need to go.
Oh, Tyler with his OCD. Let's go. That's gonna be amazing.
Do you all have OCD? Do some of you
Mac
have?
is also what I am. Yes, Gus, you are the Mac. Original Mac.
Do some of you have worse OCD? Do you guys ever clash on how you would plan something? Is it completely different than how somebody else in the group would plan it? And what does that friction look like?
I mean, so in complete transparency, like a lot of these opportunities, we don't have a ton of runway to plan. This, I would say, is one of the first ones where we're like, you're going, we know we are. There's no weird, like you're not gonna get the pass, you are gonna get the pass, you aren't, right? So a lot of the times when we're not planning a lot of stuff, it's due to external circumstances. Like we have our game plan together, but we just don't know what it's gonna look like when it unfolds, right? And so no, there's no clashing. Like all of us know that we could put together this great plan with this great runway, and tomorrow somebody could call and be like, everything changed and everything's going this way, grab your fucking shit and we're going, and it's fine. So as a team, like that's kind of how everything's shooken out, meaning like each person that is kind of in our media group now are completely independent A players. Like every single one of them in there is gonna fucking just charge and like do their own thing and carve their own path, regardless of anything else that goes around. And so now that when you have a collection of us that are like that, kind of all rowing in the same direction at the same time, we're all thinking shooters, and it's great. It's the team's fucking great to work with, and like the dynamic of living together in the houses and stuff is just a ton of fun because we just enjoy each other's company so much. And like, unfortunately, we don't get a ton of time together, so all of us are tired as shit. Like, good example was when we were at Crash. It was like, so everybody's super tired and stuff, and we don't get a ton of time. And next thing you know, it's like Bill and Tyler and I, and we're sitting in the kitchen, probably around just eating a plate of meat, and we just get talking. And next thing you know, it's like 2 a.m.
I was like 2 o'clock.
And we're like, fuck, we got to be up in like 3 hours, guys. We all got to go to bed right now. So, we're fortunate that it's a good group of us, and not to overstep or overpromise anything, but one of the initiatives going into this season is actually going to be spinning the camera around. And I personally think that highlighting a couple athletes as we do, but like really just ones that we want to lean into, but more or less like making it an inside look at behind the scenes of us doing all the stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
and like in the house and that kind of like that interaction and setting up the production stuff and the shit that goes wrong and like John being late and being left behind and like, you know, like all of that type of stuff. Yeah, like a mic'd up version of it. We've toyed around with a couple ideas too, where we're like, okay, so when we get to the house, we'll just set up a simple one-person shooter camera, and at some point in there, you have to just turn it on and do like whatever, like, you know, confessional. So you're just kind of giving your outlay of how you think things go and make it funny and like bits like that, right? And then none of us see it. And we just like give it to Rios, and Rios like cuts it all up, kind of like, yeah, like a spoof off a real world, right?
That's cool. That's cool.
Oh my God, that's gonna be all. Put that shit. No, I won't. I was gonna say put that shit behind the paywall, but sorry guys, no, I didn't mean that. I did not mean put that behind the paywall.
So I don't know. I think it would be fun to play with that. So I hope that, you know, I want to dive into some of that this time around and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it's a good group. And like I said, yeah, we plan a lot, we plan a little. Like everybody's a thinking shooter, everybody's an A player, everybody pulls your weight, everybody contributes. And like the only reason we've been able to pull off any of the stuff that we have is because of that fucking awesome group of guys. You know?
And I want to ask that question too. Like you have all these guys that go off and do everything on their own, right? They're go-getters. They like individually just go get shit and bring it back to you. How do you now wrangle in your chat, your boys club behind the scenes or whatever? How do you wrangle them in and now make this like a streamlined version? Like everybody just gets a schedule and knows where they have to be? Or is it just like, hey, we're doing this at this time, please be where you're supposed to be and don't make me look for you? Like,
well, you know, so we're all in Slack. It's super organized. Everybody has their exact meeting times, initiative, KPIs. We have very thoughtful conversations around. No, I mean, no, man. It's just, we're just fucking getting it done. You know what I mean? Like we're like, if that's the group, it's like a text thread pops up. We all kind of know what we need to do. And like, here's the other thing. Here's the intangible part about it, right? Is like all of us really actually care about not only what we're trying to produce and make and do, but the whole thing at large. And I know like there's a lot of like the crass humor and like, you know, Taylor's mouth's insane. And like, you know, we do a lot of stuff.
Taylor's mouth's insane,
you know, and like, and like, you know, there's a lot of stuff like that, but I think at the end of the day, like not one single person that is even just watches the show to hate would say that like we don't genuinely all really care about like, you know, CrossFit at large, the affiliates, the coaches, and dare I say even some of the athletes, right? So yeah, that's one of the things that like it's just the intangible part. When you have a group of guys that pull their weight, contribute that much, and care that much, like I wish I could say there was something that I actually did. It's not like, you know, it's not. It's just, it's just that's what it is. They're just fucking awesome dudes, and everybody knows what to do. And there's a lot of like nobody's giving like direction. Like there's not, you know what I mean? There's not like okay, well here's our org chart, right? Like it doesn't. No, it's just like we'll come up with a game plan. Everybody kind of drops in what we need and asks questions, and we get it done.
That's awesome. Souza defensive with his arms crossed. Okay.
Do you ever worry about when Taylor goes off on a tangent and he says what he says, or, you know, obviously the big thing now is, you know, Sevon got clipped for his thing, and, you know, Sevon, obviously I didn't hear, you know, Garrett told me that like the next day he talked about it and whatever, but the comments get pretty bad and people have a lot of opinions about it or whatever. Not that you have to like censor them, but how do you how do you prepare for the response, I guess, or like the feedback that you're going to get when stuff like that does happen? And
you can't ask Souza this because Souza was the dude that said that James turned his dick from stun to gun or stun to something.
He did.
That was an amazing line by the
way. Kill Taylor.
So stun to kill. Yeah.
Great. was so great.
Yeah, he locked in, huh?
Jumped up from your seat when he missed his snatch and was like, I fucking told you guys. That was
stun to kill. That was it.
That was awesome.
It was so good.
James is so cool. Yeah, we're so lucky. That show is so much fun. We're so lucky that we have Taylor and shit that just gives everything like that to the show.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another example, right? When everybody's doing that and giving 100%, like how could you not like be stoked to all work together and produce some awesome stuff? As far as the censorship and stuff goes. So
It might not have
Souza
been the
just
best
whips
one.
his dick out and smacks us around usually.
after I put the tassels on it so it could reach you guys. Yeah, so no, there's no censor stuff. Do I worry about things that are said? Like, no, they're all big boys. You know what I mean? Like, do I the business side of me, the monetary side of it, right? Like, of course, I'm always like, oh, there goes like there goes that situation with Rad. We're not gonna get money out of that deal. Great, you know. But at the end of the day, like I'm more concerned about them being able just to speak like authentically about like whatever it is that they want, right? Like we're real, and like I always say it all the time, and I've, you know, especially like we're in the house, like when we turn off those cameras and the microphones, like you could easily have like a, you know, OnlyFans cam that pops back on live to watch us after we're done, and it would look the same. Like it would look the same. And especially like when it comes to somebody like Taylor, like yeah, he's like super passionate about stuff, and he's got a mouth on him, but if you listen to the way that he is with us in the show, it's the same way. You know what I mean? Like he's like, you know, and I don't take offense to that. Like if he's like, oh dude, you fucking you blah, 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 it's just him. And like at the end of the day too, if you really know Taylor, like that dude cares like a lot about people and coaching and the space. And so to me, it's like when you have that as the foundation of everything, it's like that's kind of, I really look to like the fruit of his labor, right? Like what, like, and not to pick on him only, right? All of us have our moments, including Caleb over there. He's had his
yes, he has.
Yeah,
his moment in the sun.
I just want to say this dude's name just because I don't want to suck on these nuts, baby.
Oh my gosh. Those things be swanging. But yeah, so no, that's all it is. It's mostly just like every now and then it's just kind of like, damn, like, you know, maybe that brand deal isn't gonna work out and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I think the podcast is, and the audience is, and everybody's there, and that community is built because of that. Sounds weird, right? Because even a lot of the viewers of it, like even you guys will say, hey, like, yeah, some of this stuff, it's like that was a little much. You had to mute the TV, or like Heidi's always like family show or whatever the deal is, right? But at the end of the day, like you guys know that's it's just us, and we care a lot, and we're always trying to bring something good and contribute. And I think that if you didn't have that kind of bedrock or the foundation of it, like it wouldn't work, right? And so by me changing that or being like, hey Taylor, and I could for sure make a suggestion, you know, I could for sure be like, hey guys, on this show, can we not whatever? And they'll like genuinely be like, okay, yeah, and like, and I believe them, and then the show will start, and it'll get going, and and so, but that's what makes it cool, right? And I think a lot of people are coming back around to that. So I know it's come a long way to say like, yeah, sometimes like it would be easier to get some of the brands or the money, and
but do you want that though? I think something that like Garrett's really helped me see of a shift of perspective is you hear the stories about these brands that put such stipulations and like rules that you have to follow and abide by these exact things. And I think the coolest part about the sponsors that you get that really support the show is they don't put any boundaries like that on you. They support what you guys are, who you guys are, like without fault, without anything. Have you ever experienced, and you don't have to answer this if you can't, a sponsor that you've had and then lost because they were like, you broke some rules or it doesn't align with us or anything like that?
No, because, you know, at this point, like, you know who we are in the space, right? And even like early on and stuff like that, we're always very open and honest about who it is. Like we did early calls, like when Sevon will be on a lot of the calls with me right away, and like he just jumps right in, right? Like, so he's like, okay, so here's the show. It's totally crass humor. It's like 13-year-old boy stuff. But nobody cares more than we do. Our audience is highly engaged. Like we have this like familiar connection. We know how to build the community, and so like it's all of that is true. So it's one of those situations that if you came on and were like, hey, we really like you, but you know, X, Y, and Z, it's like we just kind of give the whole like, we get it, we understand, And okay, and that's it. We just kind of go the separate way. Like we get it. Like we're not for everybody,
Right.
and like that's okay with that. And like we're comfortable with that. And as you see, like I mean, think of the early shows. Like so here's one thing that I will admit that I get that I always get. If you want to talk about like the anxiety or like whatever, or like what would keep me up at night, it's like in the early days when we'd be talking about a lot of stuff on YouTube, and it's like, is it going to be a strike? Is the channel going to get pulled away? How do we navigate through all of this and still talk about what we feel is important to us and what we want to talk about, but not just completely getting shut down? So early on, that was more or less something that was concerning, not like, oh, we missed a shoe deal. Fuck it,
Right.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
rich
so
people
that was
problems. Rich people problems. I missed it.
Yeah. But you've already seen how much that's changed, especially now that Trump's in office, right? So like for me, it's like the second we did that, like whatever we did, Savannah did that 8-hour show, and like Trump was in office.
Oh
like,
yeah.
it was kind of funny because I think later on, I don't know if he said it first or I did or what, but I was like, oh man, I feel like this weird low-hanging anxiety's kind of been lifted, that like we're not going to get kicked off of something now, and like these social media platforms seem that they're opening up a bit. And like I wasn't paying as close of attention. I am now, but like our Twitter and different things like that, like we get like 50 to 60 live viewers on Twitter.
That's
all the time now. Like
That's
those shows
awesome.
on Sevon's handle, they're starting to really pick up. So yeah.
It was crazy to me the other day. When Sevon got, and I'm not gonna do it. I was going to, but I'm not gonna do it. But Sevon, when Wooly put out the thing about Sevon and the adaptive class or whatever, and I mean, was he even talking about the adaptive class? I don't even think he was talking about the adaptive. Was he? Like, to me, I don't know. The joke just didn't like. I guess I would say I probably should have been one of the people that were pissed about the joke, right? Because I have a kid that has autism. I have an uncle with Down syndrome that does have behaviors, that does flip tables, that does like do all those things, and it didn't bother me. Like like we do talk to them like regular people. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like when he's like, yo, everybody can get these jokes. It's like, well, either everybody can get these jokes or everybody can't get these jokes. So what I don't know. Like I should have been in the outrage group, I guess. But I was like, I looked at her and I'm like, I'm not outraged. And she looked at me and she was like, well, I was like,
I was,
but like, she was like, but like, what
I was like, oh, that's not a good look.
You know,
but what I didn't do is I didn't lead with emotion. I just was like, okay.
I wouldn't have made that joke, but
didn't like that. I wouldn't make that joke myself, but it doesn't change how I feel about him.
Yeah.
And it's not like I went to his page or went to her and was like, you can't fucking talk to him. Like, it's not that. I'm just like, oh, okay, I felt that one. Why did I feel that one? And I kind of take that time for myself. But then you have such an outlash of opinions, but also that's social media. Like that's what everybody's gonna do,
Yeah, here's the thing. We all know the show's like crass humor comedy show, right?
Yeah.
You ever been to a comedy show with somebody that might have some sort of handicap or limitation that's sitting in the front row when the comedian's doing crowd work?
Dude, and let me just tell you, I would never want to sit in the front row with limitations or not. Like, I don't want to sit.
No, I get it, but like, let's say that's your favorite comedian. Let's say you go and Jenny said it right there. Let's say, and I just saw this, and I was even going to use it as like a potential example here. So, I'm a huge Matt Rife fan, and I go there to the show, and I sit in the front row, and I'm like, fuck, I want that guy's attention. Like, how cool would it be if Matt Rife said my name? And then because Matt Rife was worried potentially about offending not the individual who he was talking about, but the ones around him, and doesn't do it. Doesn't say anything, just ignores them. But like, how do you feel there? Is that something that's like, then that person leaves and they're like, oh my gosh, like this, like that, like sucked. Like they didn't even like acknowledge me. Right. So like, and the point being there is that nobody's being singled out.
Right.
Who's offended?
Yeah.
And that's a serious question. So think about, like you said, the thing with your son and your uncle. Okay. So let's say they didn't watch the show.
Mhm.
How are they harmed?
Not at all.
Good point.
Okay. So now let's play this scenario out. Pauline's reversed back and she doesn't have all the work done and she's triggered emotionally at anything. Wishing somebody would.
Yep.
Okay. So let's have that, right? So now she sees it because it's in the background. Garrett's playing in the background. Fucking Sevon's on again. Goddamn. So she sees
Which
that.
I was
Yeah,
when she
yeah.
first started hanging out with you guys.
Yeah. So let's say, okay, so you hear that. Now you're pissed.
Yes.
Pauline's pissed. Visibly, your son notices and there's an issue there. And then you come out and you're like, hey, what's wrong? And Colleen yells at you. And you go, dude, I get it. I was listening to it, but you know how much this is. Well, you don't understand. Okay, now your son is what?
He's triggered. Like he knows something's wrong. He understands.
He knows something's wrong.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now how are you going to explain that to him? Okay, well, mommy saw something that made her upset because of your condition. What's wrong with my condition? Well, there's this show. The guy kind of makes fun of everybody and like it's a whole crass humor thing. And he he made fun of somebody with kind of like, what's going on with you? Well, what's wrong with me? I'm off limits, but should I be upset about this?
Right.
I feel.
I mean, that's kind of where I'm on, right?
Yeah.
I feel a flashback, and I feel like Souza just brought us back to a couple years ago of that's.
Yeah.
Those were some scenarios in our house, and Bernie said it. Trump made that same gesture. A few years back or whatever. And I remember sharing a post of it and
Pissed
having
off.
a lot of things to say about it. And when you explain it that way, it does kind of really shift the perspective of, are you going to let it bother you or are you just going to let it go?
Yeah. And more importantly, now you actually carried that message in the offense to your son.
Yeah.
So more importantly, not how it affected you. What did you actually just teach? What was the top behavior there? Well, now he's going to look at it and say, okay, well, now somebody does this. I'm going to be offended. Why? I don't know, but I know mom's got fucking pissed and the household was terrible. And that really upset me when I was a kid.
So now I don't ever want to see this shit again. I don't want to hear this shit again.
Oh.
Right. And now it actually
we're teaching our children how to be offended by the triggers that we don't address.
Yes,
right,
and then it becomes an argument between you two. So he doesn't give a shit about what Sevon said or didn't say. He's upset.
So it's not
you
about
guys are
him.
upset.
It's not. No. It's not about him. It's all about me.
That's right.
Damn.
Souza fucked you up
again.
So I used to have this. Not used to. He's still around, but good buddy
sure
mine.
You're not a therapist.
No,
definitely. Hire you for therapy.
No. But his name was Zach Rasmussen. Great dude, still friends today. He has a really successful telephone company thing he does like with repairs. But anyhow, he was like a crazy hothead when we were middle school, high school. I mean, he was the type of dude that we would go to like you get invited to a party or whatever. Like somebody in the group found out Zach's coming, and it was like, fuck, this dude's gonna cause a problem. Like some sort of friction with the female. He'll get loud. A guy will come up, and like people thought like. You have these guys that like to peacock, right? So they're you in my face, oh, you in my face, and hold me back with my what? Zach was the opposite of that. He was more or less like somebody would come up and would say, yeah, this fucking dude, bubble, boom. There was like, it wasn't,
it was 0 to 100.
It was 0 to 100. He was the type of dude that like you open your mouth and you're like, be careful. Some people don't, they get kind of crazy. He was that dude that got crazy.
Damn.
And one night we got into it with a bunch of these dudes, and it was right out in front of a club here in downtown Livermore. So anyhow, the whole thing plays out. There's a fight going, like everything's getting crazy. It's just one of those chaotic situations. The cop come, lay everybody down, ended up beating the shit out of Zach too. And and so it was nuts. So we're all cuffed up, kind of bloodied, a little bit bruised and stuff. And we're sitting there, and you also kind of feel like an asshole because at that point you kind of sobered up and your face is like you're doing one of these as a little swollen, and everybody is kind of walking by because this was like after we just turned 21. So you still kind of know everybody there. Then you're like, this feel like a douche. Anyways, there was a big ordeal with his family after that because his mom showed up all crying, and then they ended up getting sued because it turned out that they had evidence that Zach was like the instigator and all this stuff, right? And one time we were talking, and a road rage incident was about to occur, and this was after this was still kind of ongoing, right? And I remember looking at him as he was getting mad, and I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, that fucking dude just cut me off, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hey, bro, what's the most important thing to you? And he kind of like paused and he's like, what? And I was like, what matters the most right now? If it was just going to be gone, what would actually, like, what would just devastate you? And he's like, oh, dude, my fucking mom and my sister. Right. And I was like, okay, so you realize that by going after this dude right now, you're probably going to get in some sort of altercation. And who's that ultimately going to really affect? And then that was kind of like the aha moment. He was like, fuck my mom and my sisters. I'm like, that's right. Because now you're going to go to jail. You don't care. You know what I mean? Like, he was in that phase of life. It didn't matter to him what happened to him. But ultimately, once you realize, oh, it's not actually about me at all, and I'm making it about me, and then now it's going to negatively affect them, and I just admitted that that's the most important thing to me. It's like you could really start to drill down. And like, I don't know why, but I've always kind of just thought like more long term like that. And so if the ultimate goal is like, hey, the thing that matters most here is my mom, my sister. Well, that guy's not putting your mom and your sister in harm at all. In fact, they're not in the car. They're not even here.
Right.
Yeah.
So unless that gentleman is coming after your mom and your sister, by all means, do what you got to do. But in this case scenario, you're going to cause the hurt to them now. Not even this dude. This dude's just a vehicle for your frustrations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That was the first hard pill for me was when I was working with my friend or with Mary. And I had to admit when she told me that I was the reason that my son was having behavior issues. It was me.
It was her
Because
anxiety.
I could not get myself in check at all. Anything, everything, terrified of everything and anybody, trusting nobody. And she actually looked at me and she was like, oh, you don't trust men? I was like, I don't. She was like, great, you're raising one. I was like, what?
Yeah, that'll hit you.
I'll fuck you up.
Yeah.
And so, something, and I'm sure that you've heard us say, I don't remember if we said it to you guys in person or whatever, but another thing that I'm super grateful that she has found with all of you guys is that we're able to have conversations with men, to trust men, both of us, to be able to trust men again, so that we can we are raising a man.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we need to trust men again. And so we're very grateful for all of you guys because you guys are just so honest and open and willing to have as many conversations about everything and anything with us. So, we definitely appreciate you guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if we're gonna zoom out one more layer and focus around that woolly thing, right? I don't trust Elon. So we just to kind of like rehash, right? Like we talked about like really like drilling down and like how it made you feel and like ultimately like you carried that with you, that it affected your kid, right? So now zoom out one level further and look at the actual post in and of itself. So how many people saw the post or saw that podcast with Sevon?
Probably less people that saw the post.
Less people that saw the reel. So now if you go back and you look at it, we're going to zoom out and I'm going to use you as the example here, Colleen. So now let's pretend that Wooly is you and the audience is Garrett and everybody else. And then he is doing what? Putting that in front of everybody else. So that way, who's going to really cause, hey guys, this is hurtful and offends people. Let me amplify it.
Yeah.
So if you thought it was that bad and it was that big of an issue, why would you amplify it?
I wondered that too.
Like, are you trying to actually save people, or are you just amplifying it for your own motive? Because Colleen had a motive. She was pissed. She got triggered. She's going to fuck you up, Garrett, because you're listening to Sevon on a volume 10. We said it wasn't supposed to go past 4.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
and then
that in the other room.
And then that caused that chaos there. And so then she brought it at onto the footsteps of your son. Here you go, packaged and delivered. Be upset. Upset about what? I didn't even see that. Now I'm upset.
I just, yeah.
That's life right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like whatever.
Mean, that's anything. That's literally everything and
right
anything.
Now.
That's
anything.
Any like humongous creator that you go to, there, like DL Hughley does it all the time. It's just like, I get it. I get that people are going to be upset by it. I get that people are not going to like the comedy. I get that people, some things are too far for some people. Yep. Also,
and here's it one step further. I get that Wooly's posting it for engagement and I'm okay with it. just don't act like the moral hero for it.
Oh, so you guys don't even care that he like if he's posting it for engagement, which I do not know, but like if he is doing it for that like you guys are cool, you guys are chill. You just don't. You would
It's the
just want.
media game. I told him, well, I was joking around with Sevon when you know, the whole thing about the keyboard situation or whatever, the poll that we put up, and he posted his thing and there was this whole deal. I was like, if I would have played that like this, if I was Wooly, would have taken the South Park post. You know the one I'm talking about, where whatever one of the characters' dads is like laid out.
Oh
just
yeah,
like
yeah,
come
yeah.
all over computers.
Yep.
I would have done that, and I would have like take a little like cheesy little cutout of Sevon's head and like glued it down underneath the desk. And I would have posted that meme, and I would have been like, he knows the truth, ... and tagged him. Like, play the game. Play the game.
I say if you're gonna play the
That's
game, play the
amazing.
game.
So to me, that's a way that you're like gonna play the game there, right? Not trying to do it as like the ethical, moral person that is like what, the vigilante of the community, and you're gonna what, save everybody from potentially being offended. I don't understand.
Fair.
Do you think that it loses the credibility if there was supposed to be credibility in the post because he put it in the form of a meme?
What do you mean, like from him posting it?
Yeah, because it's a meme page. Like,
I mean,
But it wasn't a meme though, because it wasn't funny though. That wasn't a. I don't feel like that was a funny post. I feel like that was.
but
like,
that's what I'm saying. Like putting a serious post on a meme page. Do you think it lost credibility if he was trying to get credibility? Or no?
I don't.
credibility for what though?
Yeah,
like,
that's like.
Yeah.
That's the hard thing for me. Like, I don't know his optimal outcome. Like, is his optimal outcome to like rid the community of Sevon? Is his optimal outcome to not let him have access? Is it to, you know, like, I don't know.
Mhm.
Like, and I think that, yeah, it is a meme page, right? Like, he presents as a meme page,
Mhm.
and I think you could battle it as a meme page. Like, I think just right when that line is crossed is when you're positioning it in a way that you know is going to attract you know, hate towards it.
Mm.
And
Okay.
you're not like, there's not a comedy element. So if I were to do that same post,
So it was like the ultimate troll. Like we're in an ultimate troll scenario right now.
Yeah, it is, but it's like trolling the guy that kind of like hangs out with the yard duty, so to speak. So then like at some point he cries and then the yard duty comes out and then like you actually get in detention. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
So like, yeah, and whatever, like that, you know, don't mean to be like negative about that, but like that's just kind of like how it felt. It's like if we're gonna roll with the punches, then you know, don't go email Dawn.
I'm just trying to figure it out because I don't know why the special needs thing came into play. Like I think for me, the thing that I really don't understand is why bring special needs into it. It's not like if you're going, I don't know. That to me was the thing. With that kind of troll, I just didn't know why special needs needed to be brought into it and make
Like
it
why
even,
Wooly amplified it.
yeah, like why does
Yeah.
it even need to be bigger than whatever it was? Like,
Yeah, it would have been and again, just going back, and I think this actually qualifies the last thing and then now as a content strategy meeting, ladies. So you're actually in one right now. But I mean, if he wanted to like do that in a different way, you could have easily gathered maybe like 6 really inspirational like lifts or something from somebody from the adaptive athletes.
yeah,
Right. Like there's a lot of different things you could have cut that in there. And then you could have done something where it like did that and they were like, oh, that's weird. None of us like whatever, or like
yeah.
we don't place that. And then it just shows like a bunch of dope clips of like them like killing lifts or doing bar muscle ups or whatever the case may be. And then that would have amplified, like, I think the adaptive athlete kind of like spun that a little bit differently, right? And still would have incited his rage as he probably wanted to toward Sevon. But yeah, I just think like for me, it's like it crosses a line there. That's like kind of where that crosses. Like you amplified it in the sense of like wanting people specifically just to hate on him for it. Like I think his optimal outcome would be is that we just go away.
The hard part for me is that I know Savon's history with, you know, helping special needs and being around special needs people and understanding special needs people. So just to me, I don't know. I didn't, whatever. Like, it's cool. They have their beef, fine, fun, do your thing, whatever. I just didn't understand it. I was kind of like, wait, why get the whole special needs community involved in a beef that they don't need to be part of, like, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
weird.
I don't know.
But moving on, can we get to let's get to Tia's statement. Did you see that?
I saw most
The
of
clip.
Hiller's video.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's like, you got to know that.
No,
Like,
that's
my
fine.
sources of information are typically Jenny at like 5:45 or like 5 in the morning playing on my phone as I'm like getting my coffee together. And then it's like a Hiller video, and you know what I mean? So
right?
I'm a
Between
little
the
bit
three.
behind. Yeah.
But just the fact that she even said the thing for me, and maybe just because I've said it and I got shit for it and whatever, is just like it was a tragic fucking accident that day. Like, it was
Right.
just a horrible tragedy that, like, it was nobody killed anybody. Like, it was a horrible fucking accident and it happened and it sucks. And the fact that she came out and said that, like, as much as people like to mess with her, uh, and whatever for her, like, not promoting CrossFit and not, she's proven, whatever. For her to say that, I thought was fucking awesome. Like, I was like, okay, like, let's go.
She's the first one.
Yeah.
Isn't she?
Like, no one
Yeah,
has,
she's definitely the first one that I've heard referred
even
to
to
it
say
as
something
an
nice
athlete.
about Dave.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. And I know that Dave and T have some relationship outside of just the game stuff, because whenever he's always there, like you guys have seen it too, he'll post a picture with them at like a restaurant or something like that.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that it's like we needed more of that sooner. And I think what we ended up having is just that minority who have other things go into it. Oh, there's Willie right there.
Hey, dude.
That that whole entire minority that got loud about it and felt really upset in that certain way, like, kind of just controlled that narrative right from the get-go. And it's just a tough subject, right? Because, like, ultimately, like, the one thing that I think really sucks.
Okay, well, yeah, Rich, that's fair, but we know Rich is gonna do that though, right? Like, Rich is
Nah, he didn't have to. That was still surprising on his part. He doesn't need it.
was
He
it really
definitely doesn't
surprising
need
when
it.
Rich did it?
Not
don't
like surprising that he would do it, but surprising that he still did it. Yeah.
I don't know. I thought the Tia thing was more surprising, but
The Tia thing is definitely more surprising. And and yeah, that's
Fair,
like,
Gib.
Tia drinks paper street coffee. Okay, yeah, you got it. You right. You right.
Fair.
Fair.
And so once that vocal minority took over, it becomes nobody wants to be the other person that says against that, right? Even if they might not think it. And what I was gonna say is that, like, I think the really unfortunate thing in all of this, even outside like the division of the athletes versus or whatever the hell we want to call that, is actually just in my opinion is Luca.
Okay.
That's like, that's a tough position. I don't know if either of you guys have ever lost anybody close to you before. Have you?
I mean, I lost my mom. My mom passed a year ago, a little over a year ago.
So now imagine that up for public debate.
Yeah, fair.
And
yeah, that's got to be fucking horrible.
Right. And then, like, imagine just that whole, like, where do you place that? Like, imagine the whole anger that's going to come with that.
Yeah.
And that type of anger comes regardless of the situation of when they pass, right? So, like, it could be fucking act of God. They're walking down the street and the tree came down and squished them. Like, if that's somebody who's close to you, like, you're going to be angry.
Yes.
And you're going to be like, why? Why did this happen? This is upsetting. Like, this is really, and like, it's like, it takes a while to figure out like where to place that energy. And sometimes, like, a lot of people, I don't know if they do, like, if they ever figure out where to place that energy. And I think after somebody like passes like that, that's really close to you, it takes a while for your relationship with them to change because they're not really gone to you. Your relationship with them has just changed because you're
Right.
still going to like think about them, dream about them. You're still going to have conversations with them. There's still going to be different stuff that happens. And so I think it would be really tough to have to process all of that in such a tragic way that it went down, and then also have it be up for public debate. I think that in the circumstances and everything given here, that honestly Luca's behavior in this, in my opinion, has really been like good in the sense of how I would have potentially acted. And
Yeah.
and I think sometimes when we all get caught up in the tit for tat for that, like it's that goes away from the forefront of the mind that like, hey, at the end of the day, all of us have our opinions and we have our podcasts and then like we like carry on, right? Like
Yeah.
he's still there with that.
I always thought it
Yeah.
sucked just because there's like the two different camps have formed, right? Like you have the obviously you can see it very clearly. There's two different sides that have formed, and
You
with
mean the side that wants money and is leveraging this situation for that?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I
We'll
mean,
go with it.
right? Think
Like,
about that. Like
yeah,
if we just added more money to this, would there be division?
okay. Fair. I wasn't okay. I was just thinking like normally when someone passes and it's that big of a tragedy and it's that like horrific, just all of us being able to see it or go back and watch it, normally you come together as a community. And the fact that there's such a huge split between the community, like it's so sad to watch. Because this, and for Luca, I would imagine that has to be, he's going through it. He's going through it in a public way. And also he has to pick a side. Like that sucks. That has to suck. I can't even imagine going through all of that and then, okay, I have to pick a side, and not only do I have to pick a side, but I have to be the face of that side.
Yeah, and that's something I wonder if like how passionate about that is he? You know, like if there wasn't this big push out of the games with how some people felt it should have not continued and others felt it like should have continued, and then that divide kind of started there, and then they were looking for like minute things to drive their frustration, right? Like he said he didn't care versus like it was given a blessing, like versus like so now all of a sudden you're kind of diving into more or less like how the message was given versus like the outcome of what both of those things were said. And I'm not saying that like just to like neglect that or throw that to the side, right? Like I know people are upset about that, but at the same time, it's like what's more important to them just to use this time and that platform and this kind of tragedy to like push something that they wanted to do, meaning like some of these athletes that are saying they're out and they wanted Dave fired and different things like that. Or versus, you know, use it as a time to rally the community as for unity. Like it just is yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation, but I think too with the when it comes down to the divide, the reason why I said the thing about money is I was actually thinking about it a little bit. And I think who was it? I think it was Brian that said it on the show on Tuesday when we did the show about selling CrossFit. And he was like, wouldn't it be funny if they just the new people bought it and were like, hey, the price per now is like 2 million. What would happen with all those athletes? And we like joked and we're like, well, they would come back. And then all of a sudden it hit me and I was like, wait, so is that what this is all about?
Is it actually for
Oh
the
shit.
stand that they're
Damn.
portraying it is, or is it something different?
Correct.
Wow. Well, because
That's an interesting.
we heard it on Rich's.
Yeah.
Well, how big of a divide is it really anyway? Because the WFP, right? I think we heard it on. Was it a clip from Rich's podcast? What's the feeder program?
There is nothing there with it. It's for the athletes,
right? Like it's
right.
You have to go to an affiliate. You have to go do the open in order to get like ranked, or at least even if their thing is like how many Instagram followers do you have? If you want to have CrossFit Instagram followers, you have to go do CrossFit competitions. How else do you get to the WFP? So
yeah,
aren't they promoting CrossFit without them even though saying I'm out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my head around like the whole thing in general, right? Because you know, I've been around people with a lot of money, and I have yet to meet one that just wants to dump it into something in eternity and like build this whole thing and never expects to actually like at least break even or make money off of it. And so as I look at everything there, I'm trying to figure out like, you know, what is ultimately their game plan. Um,
Yeah.
and I do think that without having, like how Rich was saying, like a feeder system or something like that, I mean, all I see it is like a an audience generator. It's not even really a feeder system, right? Like it is, but it's not at the same time because like how many people are going to go to your gyms that have zero interest in ever competing in anything, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's gonna be weird. I'll be surprised if it makes it through like 2 seasons. Now there's a lot I don't know. So we could watch them go through this for a season. They got a couple tricks up their sleeve and they had some other things in place that we weren't aware of. And we're like, oh wow, okay, this thing's kind of rolling a little bit now. But unless something like that kind of like shows up, I don't really um like I don't really know how I don't know how it's self-sustaining. Like I don't get it. Like
I don't either.
all of them lose money.
Because even if they crumble, if that's what they actually want, and I'm not saying I know what they actually want, but if they actually like the CrossFit Games is no more, and like affiliates are de-affiliating, how do you get people to the WFP? Like, aren't they? Isn't it like a ranking system, and then you have a couple of challenger whatever, and then you get in? But like, how do you do that without having? How do you get the rankings without having the CrossFit Games
Yeah.
and CrossFit? Like I don't
That's
get it.
Me too. Yeah, I don't get it either. So we'll have to we'll have to see
Wait,
how that turns out. And I also think too, like a lot of this stuff comes in cycles, and there's still like intangible things as far as like what happens with CrossFit in the future. Like, is this new buyer that's coming in potentially going to just buy the games? Like we don't know that, right? They might just sell that thing off. Like there's still a lot of like unknown like for us as far as what that looks like as well. But the one thing that I can tell you is it just the whole thing definitely just needs some sort of like refinement. Like it can't be compared to professional sports. Like it can't and shouldn't be compared to all these other, you know, type of outlets, like whether it's golf or football, and then like how they did this or this money came into this or this is the way they designed their season. And like I know I'm not as well versed as a lot of those guys are, but like I don't know. I think once it starts to get too big, it's not sustainable. There's not that big of an audience to it. So I think the games needs to reflect the size of the audience that is interested in buying all of its stuff.
Well, because people talk mostly about the community aspect of these competitions. You know, we went to Crash, obviously a much smaller experience, but you still felt the energy of the community of being close to everybody. Like we're seeing these athletes up close. Some of them are professionals, some are semi, some are on their way. Like, and we're so intimate with them and we can see them. And then we went
Yeah.
to regionals one year, same principle. Like it wasn't sold out, and I wasn't walking next to Pat Vellner when he came up to the East Regional or whatever, but he
You were
was
right there.
there. Like
Yeah.
I'm in the stands and he's right there. And you might not get that close-knit experience or whatever, but you still felt like it,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, and
Dude, no, there wasn't. There was a lot of people.
There were a lot of
Crash.
people
We
at
were
Crash.
fucking chilling at Crash.
There were a lot of people at Crash.
Get
So,
out of here.
Well, think about it this way, right? So like JR had said and even said on the film, like, hey, with Crash, like I don't ever want it to leave this space. If we started to grow enough, I would just cement this whole back area and I would just build out what we have here and make it better, right? And like something dawned on me when he was saying that, and we were chatting a little bit about like what it would look like at like at what point, what do you shut off the spectators or what do you start to really plan for them so that way, like, you know, all logistics in place and this thing just doesn't get bombed with like, you know, a couple hundred people one year and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, this is out of hand, right? But I look at it just as like a strict like supply and demand type thing. Like the bigger the venue you have, like a StubHub or whatever it's called now, wherever West Coast Classic was.
Yeah.
Is it still StubHub? No, it's definitely
they
not Home
change?
Depot Center.
I
But
have no
well,
idea.
whatever. So
But yeah.
that, and you have you have a venue that's that big, it's like there's just not a demand to fill that. and you end up just running out of cash. I mean, there's just so much money to put out on that, right? But if you have an event that's like a JR size gym, and now all of a sudden there's 2 qualifying spots to go to the games there, and he has 500 people that wants to show up.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's $600 a ticket for the weekend. Right?
I mean,
And
why
now-
not? We were surprised when was it like the first day it wasn't anything, and we were like, "What? How is that possible?"
Yeah, and then
you know what I mean? Like, how can we support? I mean, the weekend was later.
Yeah,
you paid for the weekend, but like, I mean, at least for us, it's like, well, how can we support? Like, we're here. Let's support this event. Let's support JR. You know, so that was very surprising that he didn't charge people, you know?
And that's the way that I see that could build, because then if you get a smaller venue, or like JR doesn't pay for the venue, like that's just Jim, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he pays the cost of the pays, but like you get my point. So then that way, as that event becomes more popular and it becomes a more attractive spot, like you could control the pricing on it. And now all of a sudden those things are like lucrative for the people that put them on. Like you're much easier to find a profit margin. If you have 5 people that want to come, you could only have 100. So you adjust your ticketing price to where you're like, okay, cool. We figured out right at this price, we could maximize the amount of money that we're intaking, but it's still reasonable enough that people still show up and want to come in.
Yeah.
And it's filled enough now with people here locally. And we have the capability with our streaming that it's more valuable to sponsors too.
Yeah.
Right.
So like by keeping that, you're just essentially, the way that I would see it is just like, you're just keeping more control on like how much everything costs to put on. And if you dress up your whole entire, like you rent out the mansion for the party, and you're like, this is going to be great, and 2 friends show up, here, just out your ass, right? But if you're like, hey, just show up to the park with a 6-pack and we're going to do some thrusters, and all of a sudden there's 100 people there, you're like, hey, we kind of got something on our hands. We can afford that other house now, huh?
Yeah.
Still move there. And you do it that way. And I think I think the early success of CrossFit, especially the affiliate, especially the L1 training and all that, which led to the success of the games, and vice versa as they fed each other. I just think it gave us like a false sense of like growth. Like we really thought that like it was just going to track that way for forever. And so it probably expanded too far out past the demand that was there for it. And it takes a long time to kind of like realize how far out we were.
So do you think that these events like Syndicate and Crash and Crucible or Crescendo and all of these, do you think it's going to bring us back to those days where it was so small and intimate and profitable and it was great for everybody?
On a local level, I think it'll always exist. Like JR's thing, like there's always opportunity for that. I don't think there's opportunity for multiple of them. I don't think there's enough demand for a, Will Morad's thing and the grid thing and, a games and multiple spinoffs of that. Like, I think in order for it to go, it should just be you crown the fittest on earth and let everything else kind of locally do it similar to like they're doing now, but even put it more kind of into the gyms. And I think that it could grow to a certain point that, it would be worthwhile to get into the space. I don't know like what that number looks like as far as like it could be big or it could scale, but I guarantee you if you think that way, you're sure to miss the mark.
There kind of is a lot. I mean, you think about it only like, okay, CrossFit, and now that you just said it with Grid League, and now there's WFP, that's a lot. And then for those people that like both, that they like, CrossFit style stuff and CrossFit, and then like High Rocks or Tough Mudder or Spartan Race, like that's a lot of events. Like if you want to go watch an event, you're not going to go to, it's not like you can go get season tickets for a baseball or basketball or something. You can't do that for these events. They're all over the place everywhere. It's not like there's a New York stadium you can just go to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And most of us are going to stay as local as we possibly can.
Right. Exactly.
So that we can go to these events and we can support the vendors and our favorite athletes and, whatever. So, the big thing is like, well, the games is going to be in Albany.
Yeah. The Sevon podcast is the only place where you can go to every week to watch a CrossFit sporting event. Please tune in Saturdays live. Get roasted, enjoy yourself, roast others. It's a good time.
And not win money.
So
the games
and girls can't play. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No girls allowed.
Just kidding.
The games are in Albany.
So we're going.
And the minute we found out it was an
Awesome.
opening, it's an absolute no-brainer for us to drive.
We got
a
our
couple
hotel. We got our
hours.
hotel that day. Like when it came out, we're like, we already know.
I
So
wasn't
we got
fucking
our
around.
hotel
Nice.
room that day.
I was like, hey,
But if it
we're
was
doing
in
this, right?
California, you know what? I'm watching, the
there
Seven
you go.
podcast.
You finally got your seat on Kill Taylor.
Yes.
He might call you.
Fire.
That's awesome.
But yeah, like I'm not going to California for that shit. Like I'm just not.
Yeah.
It's just way too much. But Albany, screw that. But they're never gonna. The CrossFit Games are never like. That's gonna be very hard to do for the WFP, Grid League, the CrossFit Games, Spartan Rate, like all that shit.
Yeah,
Just-
and the more like, especially with CrossFit right now, I think one of the deals is like it's niche, like it is. And I was saying earlier, like if you think about trying to scale it or grow it or how you could build it into something else, like you're for sure to miss the mark on there. And it just reminds me of what Greg would talk about all the time as an affiliate owner. It's like if you start trying to chase things that are like, we can make more money here, I can make money here, or I can make money here, like you miss the mark on the dollars. But if you just say like, hey, how could we make this just as great as we possibly can? And how could we give everything to our community and the people that are in front of us? Then the dollars just kind of show up. And so that's what I think, like with the games, it needs to have more of like, if you waved a magic wand and gave me the resources and I bought CrossFit right now, the very first thing I would do is I would bring it back to a headquarters. I would put a gym in it. I would probably even find a space big enough that I could run the games at my headquarters.
Oh shit.
Control the land. I would force everybody that was on an executive level or whatever, I'd give them a certain amount of time and a certain amount of cash. And I would say, hey, you have to move here because everybody's going to be in-house. And then I would turn that whole entire thing into just a media company. And we would just run a bunch of media on everything health and fitness all the time. And for sure, continue just to push the education piece of it, right? Like establish your expertise in it as the professional trainer. And I don't think that, and I think that if you moved it into one area and then you had that gym there and even the capability to essentially run the games at that space, you create a mecca.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long you guys been around with the CrossFit, but CrossFit HQ was that mecca. Like to go there in Santa Cruz, like Grace and I would drive by it, and you could see it from, I forget whatever freeway it is, maybe like 101 or the 1 or something. And you could like look over and like see them, like see the HQ building on the side there and be like, oh, there it is. It's that one, right?
Yeah.
And you like drive by and you see the rig that's kind of left out there and you're like, oh, cool. So like in order to really bring it back to that, like you have to create like a culture and like you have to create a mecca and you have to create a home base and you have to create a way of like, this is how we behave and check us all out. And then I would definitely make everybody that works there as like, the cameras would all be on them and every cast of character be ran like inside of Barstool Sports.
Map Lady, I hear you. I'm done going to the games. I'd rather buy 2,000 worth of Vindicate and Paper Street. I get that. But like, it's the same way I'm going to go to the games is the same way I would go to like a Major League Baseball game or something like that was important to me. Like I'm going to hang out kind of with the fans, get to see everything, get to walk around, buy like CrossFit shit. You know what I mean? Like meet you guys, hang out with people I haven't. Like it's the community. It's kind of, yeah.
Most importantly,
boobs, Sevon's face, got it. But to walk around and like see everybody and hang out with everybody, it's not so much like I'm going to be standing at the finish line of every event or something like that. Yeah, I'm gonna miss events and shit. I'm gonna probably be playing with my kid, going to see what's going on with like the community working out at like, isn't there like little community things where they work out? Like HWPO has something or Mayhem has something where the community is working out. I want to go see that. I want to go see all the behind the scenes shit that I normally see on your show. I just want to go see it in person.
Yeah, so that's why the strategy that I said would be so powerful too.
Yeah. Right.
Because now all of a sudden you would like build a relationship with all the like characters of HQ. You want to see them. You want to be there. You want to have the community thing. And they do have some great stuff at the games. Like I don't obviously get to do any of that or like I'm aware of it. Yeah, but we're running around doing our jobs. But like even with talking with Grace, because she obviously has the time to go through some of those, like they have great stuff for the affiliates there, which is nice because that's kind of what they should have like focused it around a while ago too, right? Which is just creating this kind of fitness festival, this CrossFit festival, and giving a bunch of cool stuff there. But yeah, you guys will love it. They got so much community stuff now.
Yeah, I want to go see all of it.
Hopefully they keep a lot of that up, because there was a lot of opportunity for that, and there was a lot of really cool stuff. So that is a really
You
nice
might
part
even
of it.
get to meet Rich Froning.
I go to shut up. Don't talk to me about it. I don't I can't. I go to see Hiller get confronted by Hip and Still. Yeah, that was fine. This is such a good
You know
video.
what's funny too? Like this was a while back, but I don't know why, but something came up about that. Maybe Hiller put it in like a video or something. And I went back and I watched, and that's when we did like the beer social, where shout out Sarah Cox bought everybody like a beer right after we did like the CEO board meeting. And I had like set my camera down. I was like smoozing with everybody, and it was hilarious because that whole situation with Hiller was happening, and you could like see it in my like camera, but I had my back turned to it, and that time Sevon's on, he's like, fucking pick up that camera. What are they doing? What's going on? Like, and, and I'm just like, I have no clue. And I'm just like, talking and chilling. And like that whole Hip and Still thing was going down. It's pretty funny.
It's a love fest. Yeah, that's what I imagine it to be. We're gonna go have a good time and just hang out. Souza should absolutely. Hey, HDR, what's up, Carl? Souza should absolutely be on the new board of directors. He should be on the board of directors for everything, the government, the CrossFit Games, everything.
Would you ever want to be in a position like that? Would you ever want to like
Souza for Congress or
no?
Oh, that was fun.
No.
I'm assuming the Sarah Cox beer thing.
I meant awesome. For CrossFit. Like, would you ever want to work in a position at HQ? Would you ever, whether it's the health side, whether it's the media side, like, was that ever a dream before, or maybe a future dream?
Oh yeah, before for sure. Yeah.
Would you want to liaise between the Sevon podcast and HQ? Would you liaise?
He's like, I got too much shit to do now between the Sevon podcast
honestly,
and his own CrossFit affiliate.
Yeah, I honestly, like, I feel like no, like now I definitely wouldn't want a job at CrossFit, like a board seat where they would pay me to go to like quarterly meetings, like for sure. but no, like I think now I'm really settled in like the ventures that I have going on with the podcast, obviously with media launch, like with the gym, and like for me, it's like it's really just about continuing to grow that, and those are all positioned very, very well coming into this year. So like I'm super excited about everything we have going on there, and like now I'm going to be far more effective. I would be far more effective outside of an organization like that than inside of one.
Yeah.
All right, dude. I know we're not going to go for another marathon, just because my kid is coming up on his threshold. Right. But we talked to Tucker. You remember Tucker McLemore, Tucker the fucker?
Yep.
Yeah,
I remember.
He's got Razor Ranch. His CrossFit gym is one of the top. I think Dent's put it up
number one, I think, in his region,
for signups in his region or whatever.
Yeah,
cool.
And he's gonna do a big, humongous, like he always does, huge Friday night lights, and then like Saturday mornings or whatever.
Captains,
it's crazy.
They have teams, like they get
they're into
competitive as fuck.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what are you guys up to? CrossFit Livermore. Friday night lights. I know you said you always do Friday night lights.
Yep. Yeah, we do. It's not like I mean, every year we do the open. Every year we have like a handful of people that sign up. And we've gone through different iterations of that over the years. But for us too, it's like it always comes right at the middle of our nutrition challenge. And so we have so many people that are like going through that and that are digging in with like the different stuff like that it's always tough to get like mass participation like that, where we have like 100 plus people that are there like signed up, just because they're already all going through that other challenge. But what we typically do is like at the end of the evening on Fridays, we'll usually do 3:30 will be the last coached class, and then after that it all moves to heats, and we always have great participation. Like our community is awesome, so tons of people will come out, watch people work out. Some people just show up just to volunteer, judge, just to hang out. Typically we have like almost 0 signups till the very last day, and then we'll have like 30 people or whatever that rush is right at the end that'll sign up. But no, that's what we've done in the past. We've done like crazy stuff where we do like huge barbecues and like do all of that. But like I said, once the shift of the challenge came towards the beginning of the year, like those kind of simmered down just a little bit. But yeah, we still do it, still make it fun, still get a bunch of people that signed up, still talk crap.
Cool.
Super cool. Yeah. We'll have to order some. I know. I'm sorry. We don't have any Livermore, CrossFit Livermore merch yet. We have to order some of that so we can wear that when you come on the show. We try to do it for everybody, but
I mean, you and me both. I got to make some first. Like Travis has my stuff, so like I'm sure he could print you one, no problem. But like, I gotta make more.
I get to suffer with Jet at CrossFit
Yeah.
Chief Nation.
She's
So
Nice.
yep. So I'm officially back into CrossFit, which is
Heidi,
cool.
we do potluck. Oh, that sounds amazing.
Mhm.
Not
Oh
even gonna
yeah,
lie.
that's cool. We do that at the end of the challenge. Like when we have the challenge awards, we do like a big potluck and a big party. And sometimes it aligned. When it was 5 weeks, it aligned right at the end. So it was like this big mix of it. And now it kind of lingers after a little bit.
Hopefully Saturday.
Yeah.
So we do the first and third week Friday Night Lights with Jet, and then Saturday he does it Saturday morning, second week. Hopefully Gabe will come from Paper Street Coffee.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
that'd be
throw down
awesome.
Love to see
together.
that, dude.
But you'll
And the baby.
see.
Bring the baby, dude.
I told him
Bring
he
the
can't
baby.
come without the baby. But you Garrett is going to live stream me doing the open. So
20
you guys watch
Nice.
me suffer.
She said so. I was like, okay.
Suffer.
So
Not on the
Man.
podcast, but on Instagram, because
Yeah,
she has
I-
to be at the gym with
Yeah,
me.
I have to go to the gym and yell at her.
That's
So,
amazing.
that's my job.
Maybe we could coach Sevon into coming out and doing one of the workouts at CrossFit Live More. We could stream him with like our
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
that would be
yes.
awesome.
Can he please be in his long johns? Tell him he's got to be in his long johns.
Barefoot.
That's the only stipulation.
Barefoot.
I'll see what I could do. But yeah, it'd be cool to get him out for like a Friday Night Lights.
Get them gray sweatpants out.
No, not gray.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Judy, what's up, girl? I know I saw Jody in there.
I
Thank you, all
don't
guys.
know if it's cool, Judy, but we're doing it anyways.
We're gonna do it anyways.
We're doing it. Training to get ready for the open has sucked, and I've only been doing Sentinel training for 2 weeks, and it already sucks. So
Nice.
we'll see how it goes.
Didn't you crush Sevon when you worked out with him last time? I feel like that's how you and I met. Is like you destroyed him, and then he told me you had a beautiful body, and then I was like, oh, he does have a beautiful body, and then we met each other.
Yeah,
Like
that was
that's
at
how that
the
happened.
10-year party.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah. I feel like that's exactly how that went down. And then he was like, "Oh, I like lesbians," and then it was like,
There we go.
but yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you want to see Jake and Yang do their thing, we got Hog Talk on Saturday. Come hang out with us.
Yep.
I'm sure there'll be some rational thought in there somewhere, but maybe not.
At the end of the show is usually when we
we usually have like regular adult conversation.
I feel like that should be their intro song when it comes just the Friends theme song.
Yeah, when they come on.
Yes.
So if you want to come hear them be unhinged, we'll be unhinged on Saturday.
Yep.
And otherwise, Souza, thank you so much, bro.
Yeah.
Really
Thank you guys.
appreciate this
Thank
every
you guys.
time. Super
Yeah.
cool.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
We'll do it again soon.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
Awesome.
Deuces. That was fire.